You don't manage your way out of bad hiring. You hire your way out of bad managing. Hire slow, manage less. Most managing problems are hiring problems in disguise. Not all of them, but most of them. And when leaders tell me they're exhausted from micromanaging, well, when they say they don't trust their team to follow through, when they're stuck dealing with the same performance issues over and over again, I almost always ask the same question. How clear were you before you hired them? Because here's what I hear all the time. When it comes to hiring staff, I want to feel confident in interviews instead of guessing who's right for the job. I struggle to define roles clearly, and that causes issues after people are hired. I need a hiring system that brings the right people consistently. And then later, I don't always trust my team to follow through, so I end up micromanaging. I'm stuck dealing with the same performance issues again and again. Those are not separate problems. They're connected. You can't coach your way out of a hiring mistake. Let me be clear. I've blown this more than once. In the very early days of our company, most of our hires went fine. We were small, the stakes felt lower, and we could adjust quickly. But as we started to grow, my blind spots showed up. I made two different kinds of hiring mistakes. First, I hired people who were not a culture fit. I liked them. They interviewed well, but something was off and I ignored it. I didn't really know how to assess culture in an interview, so I winged it. That cost us. Second, I hired for culture fit, but didn't define the job clearly enough. I was vague about the outcomes and the skills required. And in a couple of cases, I even changed my expectations after they were hired. It drove them crazy. And I assumed a competent person could move from project to project, even if the skill sets were completely different. That wasn't fair to them, and it wasn't good leadership. In one case, we hired a general manager whose title meant one thing in a large, well-funded company, which they came from, and something entirely different in a small, growing one. 3 years later, and 2 years too late, I realized it had negatively affected our team. In both cases, I blew it. And that's why we built a system. But that's not the whole story. Over the years, we've also hired some remarkable people. The majority of our team members have stayed 3 years or more. Several have been with us 5, 10, and up to 15 years. And when people have moved on, it has almost always been for new opportunities, career changes, or compensation levels that a company our size simply couldn't match. And that sucks sometimes. And in 97% of those cases, we still have strong relationships. They're not just former employees, they're friends. Some of them we still spend time with. One recently went on vacation with Catherine, and another is one of my closest friends. We've even had several team members come into my office with tears in their eyes when they were leaving. Not because they were unhappy, but because they didn't want to let us down. Instead of the standard 2 weeks notice, they've given us 4 weeks, sometimes 6, just to make sure we were taken care of. When I tell other leaders that in other companies, they're stunned. It's amazing. What I'm most proud of isn't our growth, it's our people. We've learned how to find individuals who are a strong culture fit, who do excellent work, and who serve our clients in a way that customers spontaneously brag about them. That didn't happen by accident. It happened because we stopped guessing. At Habbo, we've come to believe something very specific about the people who work with us. Horst Schulze, the founder of Ritz-Carlton, once described it this way when he was talking about who they are and who they serve. We are ladies and gentlemen, serving ladies and gentlemen. When I read that, I thought, yes, that's it. That's what we believe too. The people who work with you are not tools. They're not headcount. They're not just labor. They are men and women with dignity, just like the people they serve, and how we treat them matters. If that's true, and I believe it is, then hiring isn't transactional, it's relational stewardship. And it matters more than most leaders realize. And stewardship that matters deserves intentional structure. Now, before I walk you through our hiring structure, it's important to understand a few of the core mindsets and assumptions that sit underneath it. So this is the first. At Habbo, we think in terms of 5 levels of win: ownership, employees, customers, greater community, and God. A bad hire doesn't just affect productivity, it affects morale. It affects customers. It affects culture. It affects your reputation. And it affects your integrity. And when you step back, all of it compounds into performance inside your company and out in the market. And hiring well protects all five. The second foundation underneath our hiring system is what we call the three-legged stool. For us, every hire must stand on three legs. Competency. Can they do the job? Character and culture fit. Should they do the job here? And judgment. Will they make wise decisions when you're not in the room? If one leg is weak, the stool wobbles. You can train skills, you can coach performance, but you cannot coach someone out of poor judgment or chronic misalignment. And you cannot manage your way out of a bad hire when you never clearly defined the role. The third foundation underneath our hiring system is a hard-earned lesson. Most leaders hire on instinct. They like the person, they feel good in the interview, and maybe the candidate interviews well. And then 3 months later, they're thinking, how did I miss this? You didn't miss it. You didn't have a system designed to catch it. Hiring well requires a multi-level approach, like a series of filters. Each one more refined than the last. Each stage more clarity. Each stage more filtering. At each stage, you get more truth. Because of those foundations, we built a disciplined hiring system. We call it our Hubbo 16-step discipline. We don't hire casually. We use a defined, repeatable process. It starts with clarity and intention, defining the position, writing a detailed job description, and identifying the real outcomes needed and establishing the timeline and the reasons for the hire. Then we communicate that clarity intentionally, crafting a compelling job ad that attracts the right candidates, filters out the wrong ones, and posting strategically to reach the audience we actually want to reach. Then we begin filtering, reviewing applications and sorting by qualification level, sending acknowledgement emails to those not moving forward, and then conducting structured phone interviews, categorizing them clearly. Not a fit, on the fence, strong fit. For strong candidates, we go deeper, requesting writing samples and work product, narrowing the top finalists, administering a judgment index assessment to see how their judgment is, and then conducting in-person staff interviews, and then debriefing as a team, and finally, inviting top candidates to meet with Catherine and I for a final culture and just leadership interview. Every step reduces risk. Every step increases clarity. And we don't skip steps just because we like someone. Discipline builds confidence. And one of the biggest challenges I hear about it is I struggle to define roles clearly. That's not a small issue. When a role isn't clearly defined, people guess. And when people guess, they guess wrong. They don't know what good looks like. They don't know what they're accountable for. And they don't know where their responsibility ends and someone else's begins. So you step in, you correct, you remind, you follow up. And before long, you're micromanaging. Yep, not because you want control, but because you want it done right. And when it's not getting done right fast enough, you step in. And more often than not, the problem isn't effort, it's clarity. When expectations are clear, accountability becomes objective instead of emotional. Now, hiring doesn't end after an offer letter. That's important to remember. The first 90 to 180 days serve two critical purposes: evaluation and onboarding. First, look, it's a window of evaluation. We don't assume fit. We're asking, are they aligned? Are they performing? Are they growing into the role we defined? If something is off, it will show up early. And if you avoid addressing it because it feels uncomfortable, it doesn't go away, it grows. But this window is equally about onboarding. Even the right person can fail in the wrong environment. Strong character, competency, and judgment are not enough if you don't equip them with clear expectations, defined processes, proper tools, and a cultural context. Even good judgment fails without good information. When you don't onboard well, you undermine both your new hire and yourself. So, back to where we started. You don't manage your way out of bad hiring. You hire your way out of bad managing. And if you want to stop guessing in interviews, stop setting good people up for frustration by being vague about what the role actually requires. If you want to stop creating unclear expectations that force you to micromanage and stop having the same performance conversations again and again, Then build a system. Define roles clearly, attract intentionally, filter consistently, assess honestly, and onboard thoroughly, and then address misalignment early. And remember, you're not just filling a seat, you're shaping a life and a team, because when you hire well, something changes. You manage less because expectations are clearer. You trust more because judgment was tested. You build loyalty because people were equipped, not just evaluated. And you get better performance because the right people are in the right role. And sometimes you build friendships that last a long time after the payroll ends. So hire slow, lead with clarity, and steward the people entrusted to you. If any part of this resonated with you, even a sentence, would you tell me in the comments below? Which hiring mistake have you made? The culture fit one? The unclear role one? Both, like me? Look, I read every comment. And if the Leadership Contrarian is the kind of thinking you want more of, hit that subscribe button so you don't miss the next one. And until next time, keep learning, keep growing, and God bless.